So, Marianne, I think you're muted because I can't hear you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm so sorry. I hope you. I'm sure everyone was wondering what was happening to me. I'm sorry, I was muted the whole time. Welcome to Bedtime Chat. I am Mary Anna Cohn, and on the show today, as usual, we always talk about issues that maybe gets lost in the news, or we never really get to have the airtime to talk about it because everybody's talking about how bad the economy is, or the politicians and our leaders, and sometimes we forget to talk about us, ourselves, what we want, how we want our lives to play out every other day. And at this time of the day, normally, we're all getting ready for bed. Some people are already snoring as we speak. But you are awake and you're watching us. I'm Mary Anna Cohn, and we are live from Lagos, Nigeria. Together with me tonight, as we chit chat about love languages, is Uti Elu. Uti is a media personality, and she's joining us live also on Habs. Hi, Uti.
Hey, hi, Marianne.
You have a
I'm
bright
bright.
color for
Yep.
bedtime. It makes me awake. I mean, it makes me feel like we should be here for like 2 hours. Yellow.
I'm bright because you remember the last time I was half asleep, but it's bedtime chit chat, so it's fine if you're half asleep. But today I'm all awake and alert, and I try to find some color and sunshine. So there we go.
Oh, it's beautiful. I like it. I like it. So great. We're talking love languages, and for lots of people, it can be anything. People have the weirdest things as love languages, like picking up the trash, or literally like calling them before they go to bed. So all kinds of things in love languages. So we're going to talk about it today, and we're going to talk about it from my experiences, and we want you to be part of the conversation. What is your love language? Is it overrated? Because people are always talking about love languages. This is my love language. Money is my love language. What really is love language, and do we really understand what it is, or we just follow the trend when people say, oh, that's my love language, you too pick it up? Uti, I don't know, I'm sure you would have like a gazillion because I have more than one love language. But let's start by examining what love languages are, and what you know why people think that it's important, or why we need it to sustain our relationships.
So I mean, yes, you not necessarily have more than one love language. So there are five love languages. So for anyone who's ever read the book, it's a book called Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I read this many, many years ago. When we were teenagers, young adults, we used to read all these books. They were like a certain set of books that you just always read. And this was one of
Hmm.
them. So technically, there are five love languages, and you will have, they will sort of resonate with you, all five, but each person has
Hmm.
one main one. So, like mine is acts of service. So, there's acts of service, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. So, the idea is that in a relationship, and I think when this was first written, it was written from the perspective of romantic relationships, but he's broadened the series to have family relationships and all sorts of different things.
Hmm.
But the main thing that we're talking about today is on the sort of romantic side of relationships and how these five different love languages play out. So every each one of these love languages is important, and what it really is the fact that people give and receive love in different ways. So, what's important to me, or the way I expect to receive love, will be different from how you expect to receive love. And the same way with your partner, they will also understand. And different things feed into what your love language or is. It could be how you experience your parents giving love, or a really powerful relationship that you had. There's so many different scenarios that can set what your love language is. But the most important thing is that you know what your love language is, your partner knows what your love language is, and vice versa. So you know theirs as well. And then you both learn to speak it, because it's important. So we see relationships breaking down today. We see people, you see a lot of people frustrated in their relationships because they think they're doing everything right. They think they're doing everything to satisfy their partner, but they're just not hitting the spot. And, when we sort of picked the topic for the show today, I had a quick flashback to Banky W's video, himself and Adeswa, and how he was also talking about love languages, where he was doing all these things that he thought would make her happy, because I think his love language was acts of service and hers was quality time. So he would make her breakfast in bed, and she's like, and then all she wants is to spend time with him. So it's important to understand what the love languages are. So just to speak to you thinking that you have more than one love language, yes, you each of them will resonate with you in different ways. So for me, my main love language is acts of service. But then I also words of affirmation, quality time. Probably my least relevant, funny enough, is receiving gifts. But I won't go into defining the love languages just yet. I'm sure it will come up in the conversation. But for me, if you sweep the floor, if you take some pressure off my shoulders, I'm always carrying the weight of the world. If it's not work related, if it's not home related, the weight of the world is on my shoulders. So if you can do something to take it off of my shoulders, then yeah, my person. That's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me to acts of kindness really works for me because I just feel like I don't have to tell you everything. I just feel like you should know, you should be able to tell because I'm very expressive. So you should be able to tell that I'm tired and I really don't want to be cleaning up the house right now, or pounding a pounded yam for you at the time, at 7 p.m. because you want to eat white soup. That
Really.
works for me, and exactly. And just simply just making sure that your shoes are in the shoe rack, the laundry bag is filled with your clothes and not them just hanging around. It just, for me, that just like you, it takes the weight off. It's super. And then I also obviously like the gift parts. I like to give and I like to receive. Maybe I give more, but I mean that's mine. So I have more than one. But some people just, so let's break it down, because you see the reason why I started by saying that lots of people do not necessarily know what these acts of kindness, love languages are. Somebody would say money is my love language, and you're really wondering like, okay. I mean, I've said something like, if you tell me I bought a ticket and we're going on a holiday, well, love. But that's not really like, for me, that's a random act of kindness. It might not be kindness, but it's like a gift giving, but it's random. So it's not like we sat down and planned it. I like those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
how do we fit all of those kinds of, in quotes, love languages into these five love languages?
So I mean, I guess it starts with first of all really understanding those love languages a bit more. So acts of service, for example, is speaking to things that your partner can do to take pressure off you, to menial things sometimes, or things that will allow you, when someone says that phrase, oh, let me do that for you, or can I take care of that for you, or like you said, we're having a conversation and I'm saying, you know what, I'm really tired, my back really aches, but I need to go get something or I need to go do something. A person either does says, "Oh, let me do that for you," or somehow, they just go and get that thing done and they come back and say, "Oh, I've done this," or "Here you go." That's really what resonates with someone who acts of service is their love language. Whilst for words of affirmation, that person is moved by the spoken word. So I know they say actions speak louder than words, but for this person, it's really the opposite. And it's not that you're not following through on what you're saying, but it's the fact that you're giving unsolicited compliments. You're telling the person you love them, you love what you love about them, so that they also know. Because I think it's also important that when you're defining the love languages, not just to define what they are. So maybe I should have said that for acts of service. It's also to define the impact. So for someone who, acts of service is their love language, then they really don't want someone who's lazy or someone who they feel isn't thinking about what's affecting them and what's important to them. Same thing with words of affirmation. They're very sensitive to the spoken word. So they don't want to hear insults. They don't want to hear abusive language. All of that sort of breaks down that person and the way they feel in that relationship. Quality time, of course, is not just about spending time together, but that quality side of it is important. So it's really about uninterrupted time spending, no phones, no TV, no eating, no talking. The fact is, I have your full 100. If there's like 101% attention, then it's 100% attention. So for that kind of person, me trying to talk to you and then your phone is ringing and you're going, hold on, hello, hello, that kind of thing doesn't work for that person. So not just quality time, but quality conversations and activities, really understanding, when it's about quality time, my quality time could just be sleeping. Somebody else's quality time might be going to the spa. So for someone who also speaks that language,
Yeah.
it's important that you actually ask them what that they want to do with that quality time. What is that thing, that activity that would make them feel special in that time that you're spending together? So also not assuming what it is that they want you to do.
So
Physical touch.
people mistake quality time for. I want to say something silly. Something silly came to my head. Something I always say. But people mistake it for having sex. So you say we're having quality time, and they think that that's what it is. They put it in that context. So,
Well, so
and
again,
again, yeah,
it's contextual. So, if you ask for some people what their quality time is, it could also be sexual. So, which is a nice segue into physical touch, because some people also misinterpret physical touch as being purely sexual, but it's not. So, it's not about um, the sexual part of it. It would be more closer to defining the people who are touchy feely, right? So, they love the hugs, the hand holding. Sometimes you're sitting next to your partner and you're just like rubbing their leg or shoulder or something, all those touchy feeling type things. Not necessarily going down the path of being sexual, but you just get that excitement and feeling of love and care from just having that physical contact with the person. So again, when you talk about it from a sexual point of view, part of it could be physical touch, but more so in quality time, right? Just the way when we talk about receiving gifts, like you mentioned, we all love getting gifts. There's nobody that doesn't love getting gifts. So when we talk about receiving gifts, it's, people say, oh, just give me money. I was having a conversation with someone and she said, if a guy ever buys me flowers, I'll beat him with it. That the flowers will die. So why don't you just give me the money that you used to buy
I
the flowers?
love flowers. Why would
Well,
you say that? I mean,
so I
yeah,
love
flowers
flowers
are.
too. I was actually speaking to someone else. Like, I literally love flowers. So I don't just love flowers when they're alive. Like, when you buy me flowers and they're starting to wilt, then I turn them upside down. If they're like roses or flowers that smell nice, and I dry the
Mhm.
petals. I like to keep them, But some people don't
Uh,
get. They're like, why would you spend all that money? Then the thing will first of all wilt. It will start smelling. Like, I've heard all sorts of stories when it comes to flowers,
Please,
right?
I love flowers. So whoever is listening and
So
send me flowers.
send you flowers, right? So when it comes to
Yeah.
giving gifts, it's not necessarily the value. So it's not, because some people feel guilty as well about receiving gifts being their love language because they think it means they're sort of materialistic. But it's not about being materialistic. It's about the thought that goes into the gift, right? So whether it's a card, whether it's flowers, whether it's understanding the difference between, what, I love flowers and I absolutely hate flowers. So the thought behind it that shows that you really get your partner to the extent where you understand what resonates with them. Sometimes even there's a sacrifice that goes into getting the gift. If I only have 10,000 naira and I'm using my whole 10,000 naira to buy you a gift, you know, it's that kind of thing that really says it doesn't have to be something that's worth $1 million. It just has to be something that there's been a lot of thought into it as to this being the absolute perfect gift for you at that time. So saying that, just like we talked about the positives of the language, so the negatives for the quality time people, um,
You got
we're
there
not
because I was going
that
to say
we're
that people
only
always take
to give to
advantage
people.
of.
Sorry.
Yes, I was about to say that people take advantage of,
Mm.
oh, my love language is gift taking or random acts of kindness. So they're saying, I want you to surprise me every other week. I want money for this. I want this and that. So how do you deal with the negatives? How can you even decipher between someone who's really telling the truth as per their acts of kindness and someone who's taking advantage and someone who's a leech?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, don't forget that these love languages just help you to understand how you give and receive love better. But they're not defining the strength of the relationship. They're not defining the character of the person. So there's still elements of you getting to know the person and knowing whether the emotions that are being talked about are true, are being felt genuinely. Because, like I said, these languages they go beyond just the romantic relationship, even though that's where we're focused today. So if you do have a friend, for instance, who's taking advantage, there will be other signs that says this person is taking advantage. Because remember, it's not again about the amount, it's not about the value. So I love giving gifts. um don't forget that that's your, the receiving of the gifts is the love language. So you loving to give gifts is great. You have a partner who loves to receive gifts, and it's fantastic. But as with anything, it can be taken advantage of, because yes, if I choose to say, okay, I want to take advantage of the fact that somebody likes to give gifts, then it's possible. But if we keep it to what these languages are about, it's the focus on you being in a genuine relationship, and then how do we communicate better? How do we eliminate those areas of frustration? Because people get really, I've spoken to so many people, even I've experienced it. Like it took me a while, even though I read the book. You know how sometimes you read the book, but it's not relevant at the time, you forget it. And then at some point, you just happen to stumble upon it and you go, oh, this is why I've been feeling so frustrated, because it's so important to me that I can't be saying I'm tired. Like I've had it, like I always say, my tired is tired. Like I've had a really long day, and you're hearing me whinge about these things, and you're not even saying, okay, let me help you do this, or how can I make life easier for you? I'm thinking, what's wrong with you? What really could be your problem? Like, do I need to die first before you decide that you can help me? So it's really important that we're speaking that on that same wavelength of what it is that you're doing. If you're a gift giving person, if you're a gift receiving person, when somebody misses your birthday, like if you don't give me a present on my birthday, it's okay. It's not a crime. As long as you remember to call me, remember to wish me happy birthday, I'm good. But for some people, when they don't receive gifts, like you imagine not getting a gift from your boyfriend.
Yeah, like they make a big deal out of
Yeah.
it.
Like you miss an opportunity, you miss an anniversary, you miss a birthday, like World War III has started. And for you, that's not your love language, you're thinking, what's the big
Okay.
deal? So
Yeah.
it's a both people in the relationship have to understand each other's love language. We don't have to speak the same one, by the way. It's not really about us being on the same wavelength in that manner. It's more that I speak your language, you speak my language, so when you're dealing with me, you know what's important. When I'm dealing with you, I know what's important, because the whole point is the relationship is thriving. The whole point is everybody is happy, because I said it many times. I love you is great. You love is get angry, really angry. Love is the first thing that goes out of the door, because in truth, it's an
Yeah.
emotion, and emotions can be
Yeah.
fleeting. 1 minute you feel intense anger, the next minute you feel intense joy. Love is in that
True.
same space. When it's new, you feel like, oh my God, the air I breathe is this person. And then 10 years down the line in marriage, you're like, this guy just drops his shoes everywhere. Like, what rubbish? Why? So these
So
languages just help you. Um, in the book, he refers to something called a love tank, right? So the whole idea of speaking these languages and understanding them is to keep filling up your love tank. So it's like the gas tank of your car, right? Your car runs better when it's full, and then when it's running on running on empty, the car can't function. So the idea is you trying to speak your partner's love language every time you do something. You know how somebody gives you a gift? The people that have like receiving gifts, it's so easy because I give you the right gift and your heart just melts. And I'll speak for the men. It's easy. Just buy something and she's all, everything is forgiven. With me, I'm not a receiving gifts person, but I swear you buy me a pair of shoes or you buy me a bag, you are forgiven for like a year. I'm easy. I don't just just buy shoe, buy bag, it's okay. So if that is what it is, it gives you longevity. So the next time the person upsets you, maybe if you buy me a pair of shoes today and you upset me tomorrow, all is forgiven. So you can keep filling up that tank and saying, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to push it forward. Because we want to make sure that when those moments come, and in relationships, it's not hunky dory every day. In life, it's not hunky dory every day. And you will fight, you will have arguments, there will be
yeah.
trying times in the relationship where you just go, you know what, I don't want to see this person, I don't want to be around this person. But if this
Yeah.
person has spoken your love language enough, then your tank is full and it gets you through those times. And one of the important things for me with relationships, I always say people overestimate love. I don't know how you feel about it, Marianne. So maybe you should tell us how you feel about love. But I think people overestimate it in relationships. And that's probably why we have so many
The problems
relationships.
that we have.
Yeah,
Yes,
so many
actually.
relationships.
So I mean, I think first and foremost, people need to understand different kinds of love because we just say love in general. For example, the love that your mother gives you or shows you is different from the love that your brother shows you and your father shows you or your sibling shows you. But all of those kinds of love play a role in the way that you love someone else,
Yeah,
especially someone you
in a
have
different
a,
mm-hmm.
yeah, a relationship, what's the word, a romantic relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not getting that love from where you're coming from, it affects how you deal with the person you're romantically involved with. So if you saw your parents hand holding, being romantic with each other and treating each other right, even without the romance, just being cordial with each other, and and they exude something that you also crave for. It's easier for you to give that type of love to someone, but if you do not necessarily have that, you're going to struggle. One, and that's why we see a lot of people in relationships, just touching is enough for them. That's love. So just touching is love. And for some people, oh, he bought me a car, so he loves me. Huh? Oh, well, he got me an iPhone on my birthday, so he loves me. And they do not realize that it goes beyond that. But let's talk about the over exaggeration of love in relationships. I learned early enough in life that love is not enough to hold a relationship, let alone marriage. One of the most important things is communication, and friendship. Friendship plays a big role because, like you said, it's not hunky dory every day. The day that love decides to go on a holiday, friendship takes over. Friendship is the pillar. In fact, that stone that the builder rejected. That's the one, because everybody's building on to love and kissy, touchy, and excited. But then love, friendship is that thing that holds. It's the basis. It should be. And in fact, I advise everybody. People say, "Oh, it was love at first sight." Yes, but build a relationship, because that's what's going to last forever. So
Yeah,
the day that you feel like killing him, remember, like, you're my guy.
yep,
Let's have this conversation. Let's talk like friends. Let's talk like adults. I'm your friend. So let's level with each other instead of just checking out on each other. So I noticed that most times, most relationships break because they say, "Oh, the love doesn't live here anymore." So
so I mean,
do
that's
something.
love not living here anymore is, like I said, you sort of need to understand that love is a feeling, and people sort of misconstrue love being that butterflies, that infatuation you have really
And
early
that, goosebumpy feeling.
Yeah, so as soon as that feeling is gone, people think, oh, love doesn't live here anymore. But the truth is,
True.
love is so much more than that. Love is actually a choice. So, if you sort of think back to people, or even now, I mean, arranged marriages still happen. You find people who are in arranged marriages who don't know each other. They meet each other for the first time on the wedding day, and their process is different because they first of all get to know each other, then they become friends, um, and that sort of thing grows, and that's the same thing that happens with these love languages. It's part of that. So that whole idea of filling your love tank is as you're getting to know someone, you're getting to know what their love language is, you're seeing the things that they respond to really really well, and if you're paying attention, right, I don't necessarily need to tell you that oh, there's this thing called love languages. Mine is acts of service. So here's what I need you to do. No, it's in the process of getting to know someone, you see the reaction of the different things that you do have. So you see that, oh, this person likes to hold hands, this person likes, just touchy feely, likes to hug, or wow, I got her this, maybe a little gift. It might have been as little as bringing them back something from a holiday that might be, fridge magnet or a keychain or something, and the person was really thoughtful because it was something that you guys had talked about. So it's really that idea that in a relationship, you're in tune with the person, you're in tune with your partner, so you can sort of pick out what really means the most to them. And that is actually you paying attention. That's where you sort of talk about love being more than this, warm and fuzzy feeling. And as the relationship goes on, the warm and fuzzy will wear off for most people, the infatuation will wear off for most people. Even the sexual side of it also sometimes starts to wane. So the fact is, you can have peaks and troughs. You can have times when, oh, we're so in love, it's all going great. And then things happen. Sometimes people have kids and it's all about the kids and they forget each other. But as long as you keep making that effort, as long as you keep speaking your partner's love language, what you're doing is you're filling up the tank. So you make the choice to love the person because love is a choice, and you're filling that tank up. So with the times when it's not so great, you know, that tank is feeding it. But you come back to a point again where you're making the effort, so you're choosing to push love back up to being the focus. But it's interesting. People easily think that, oh, once love isn't here, like you said, when you get older, it's not about sex. It's companionship. It's friendship. It's somebody to talk to. Um, when the kids have left home, when it's just back to being the two of you, if you spend the last,
Yeah.
do you get what I mean? You spend the last maybe eight
Yeah.
years talking about school, homework, school fees, money, all of those things. Then one day you wake
True.
up and it's just the two of you. Now, if you've made it this far, then you've got to wake up and start saying, oh, I need to ramp this up. I need to find our excitement again. And these languages are such a good way to do that because you can remember that, look, I've now got to get this person to see me in a different light. So don't see me as, let me use our lingua franca here. Don't see me as Mama Shalai. See me as booty, hot babe,
Yeah.
talk
Yes.
about it, about how you want to get that, flip the script and get that person thinking about you and seeing you differently because now the circumstances have changed. But the thing there is, it's a choice. And us understanding people enough to know subtly that I like to get gifts, but don't get me flowers. I like to get gifts, get me shoes. Some people don't even like sentimental people. I know we don't do it as much, but I grew up in a family where my mother would buy you the number of cards. So as I got older, she always used to buy a lot of cards. But as I got older, the birthday cards got more because my mother would buy you a card for each year, right? On Valentine's Day, she'll get me a card. There was like, so we were big on cards in my family. So even though we don't give cards today, the people that know me enough to know that I
Still
love
buy you
giving cards.
cards.
Yes,
Mm.
I never throw away cards. Never, ever,
Please
ever.
remind me when your birthday is so I can get you a card, by the way.
March 30th for you and everybody that's listening.
Well, we'll
So,
have to wait for next year. We'll have to
you
wait
know,
for next year. So,
no, but
yeah.
there are other times you give cards. Christmas is around the corner. I like Christmas cards too.
Oh,
But
well,
cards,
yeah, Christmas is around the corner. Yes, I will
yes. So
definitely
there,
get you a card.
the
Mm.
idea that, because I think for me, my top main love language is acts of service, like I said, but my next strongest one is words of affirmation. So for me, the written
Mm.
word is really important. Hearing it is also important. So, but
Yeah.
different things shape for each person. I'm sure if you talk about your act of service, the reason why your love language, sorry, even if it is acts of service, the reason why it's acts of service for you will be so different from mine, even though we speak the same language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So everybody needs to understand what they are, and you need to make sure that your partner understands it. I'm not saying, I mean, you can take the test. There's like if you want to know what your love language is, on the
Yeah.
website. So they have a web the book has a website,
Uh-huh.
5lovelanguages.com. You can go on there and take a quiz, to find out what your love language is. For those that are not
Huh.
sure, right?
Yeah, yeah, very true. I mean, I could do it again just for the fun of it. But you
Exactly.
you
So
you
find
you
out.
said something that got my attention, which is first things first. It looks like we communicate, but we don't listen. When
Mm,
the whole getting to know you, phase of relationships. We're also excited about. Oh, I met the person, I met the one, so we're just so excited to go through it. But we're communicating both ways, but we're not necessarily taking it in and understanding and taking notes. Some people do take notes. I mean, I've been with people who surprised me, and I would be like, "Oh wow, they listen," because I had been used to being with people who were not listening. They
mm-hmm.
were they were present, but they were not present.
Yeah.
So I have also been with people who were really listening and were taking notes and would literally surprise you. So
Mm,
what do we do to, because again we live in an age, and it's not in any way well, I'm not in any way trying to knock Gen Z,
Mm.
Even our millennials are also getting carried away by all the the
Hype.
BBLs and yes, and we forget to take in. We're just very peripheral these days. And you made another point that people get married or get together for all kinds of reasons and forget themselves. They're carried away by work, trying to make money, putting food on the table, matching up with society. And then when the kids leave home, you're two perfect strangers.
Yep.
So you have literally, and you're asking yourself, who's this person? Look at what happened during the lockdown. A lot of people had to
Exactly. People had
spend
to
time with their partners and their children,
self-isolate.
and they're just wondering,
Mm.
who the bleep are these people in my house? Do you understand? So it's just it really does shock me that you do not have a relationship, and I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility to all people that this may apply to, because I come from a family where, I mean, we're very close knit. My brother and I, my mom and my dad,
Mm.
um, and we were always like, we've always been close. It's, I mean, nothing hidden, nothing. It was just, you know. So whether we were there or not, I mean, my dad now is, of course, a bit sad because he's lost his partner, too
Mm.
early. And that's like, look, everyone who knew my parents would say that they were like Siamese twins because they went everywhere together.
Mm.
We, the kids, we would not spoil their reggae with our blues. They, when we were there, we were there. We were like, a pack, and we would have fun, we'd tease each other. It was cool. It was all fun and dandy. But when we left, those two, inseparable. I mean, when people were eulogizing my mom at her burial, it was amazing because it was like, it didn't also sound strange to us because we knew that this is who these people are. They've been together. It's always been them versus the world. And so you wonder why you would want to be in a relationship, and I mean, you, by you, I mean me, be in a
Yeah.
relationship with the person who's absent, who
Mm.
doesn't prioritize me. And it's not for my parents, it wasn't even about money or anything. They just valued each other. But it's very difficult to find that today, you know. And my dad
But
knew my mother's love language, gifts. So even if he went for a walk, he went to visit somebody, he's buying suya as he's coming back because his babe will eat that suya. It's not for you. Oh. So you are the children. Go and sleep. I'm
yeah.
talking about when they're in their 50s. I'm not even talking about today. So this
Mm.
is how they are. But we don't see
Absolutely.
that in today's world, Uti, and it really scares me. One of the reasons why I'm very, very, critical about relationships today. Yeah.
Yeah. It is difficult. The world has moved on. The culture and the context is changing. So when your parents got married, they were very much, their culture was different. What was expected from relationships at the time was different. So they, at that time, when you face challenges, there was, divorce wasn't like the thing. So you kind of, as we say, you plug through it, you try to figure it out, and all of that. But what that sort of did for a lot of people, I know, a lot of women suffered in silence and all of that happened. But the way it sounds to me from what you're saying, your parents' relationship has shaped your love map. So they spent a lot of quality time together. They were always together. They understood each other. Um, but today, the context is changing. So think about the last time you went to lunch with someone or you went to dinner with your girls. How do you see at some point in the conversation, there's a lull because everybody's pressing phone. The foodies are taking pictures of their food and they're posting. The workaholics are on the phone doing work talk. Like everybody's on their phone. And you're thinking, we all came out,
Yeah.
but now we're on the phone. So the distractions, the reality today is different, right? Everything that you see happening today is driven by something. For some people, it's not real until it happens on social media. So you have people posting their most intimate moments on social media because that's what validates them. The what's it called now? The production that weddings have become is another huge thing
Oh,
because
girl, you don't even want to
now
go there.
it's
Eh?
it's more about the wedding than it is about the relationship. I mean, the first 2 years of marriage, they say, is the toughest. But people aren't even ready for that. In Nigeria, if you're on the religious spectrum, we've Oh yes, you must do pre-wedding classes, marriage counseling. Don't nobody prepare you for what happens when the wedding is going to show. You know. So the fact is,
Uh,
people. It's like with guys. I always say, guys have the girl that they love who doesn't fit the profile. Then when they're ready to get married, the first girl that fits the profile. Then tomorrow, when they're not happy, that girl that fits the profile, she's the ideal missus. She's the ideal one to pump out the children. But the real person that they were in love with is out there somewhere. Then, she assumes the side chick slash mistress role. So you, so you find that these things all happen. And because our priorities are in the wrong place, a lot of the times when it comes to relationships, I want to be in a relationship, I want to be in a relationship. Are you actually ready to be in a relationship? Because it's frigging hard work. It's great, but it's not warm and fuzzy all the time. This person is the person that you'll be around a lot of the time. They will annoy you, they will upset you, so many different things. Can you imagine someone who is a quality time person, and then in your relationship, the realities of life means that one of you has to go abroad and one of you has to remain behind? Can you imagine the kind of work it would take to keep that relationship going? It's not impossible, but it's a choice. You spend time together differently. You might spend hours on, FaceTime or video calls, but it's the thought process behind it. It's the understanding, first of all, what love really is and the
yeah.
choices. He said today, I was watching a skit the other day where a guy was complaining and saying, "When today there's no love again, oh, every girl just wants to know what you bring to the table, what car do you drive, well, what money do you have in the
But
account,
it's
what you
vice versa. The guys are also asking what do you bring to the table. So it's more like a contractual business
you
relationship
arrangement."
sorts. Yeah. It makes it
It really
tiring.
comes to that. But the thing is, I tend to break it down by where you are in life, right? So I remember once seeing the picture of Basket Mount with his wife. I think it was one of their anniversaries, and posted a really old picture of him and his wife when they probably first met. They were still dating. And I'm like, yeah, when you're 18, you can do that. When you're 20, when you guys are just figuring out the world, you could do that, right? When you're 40 or 50, then I need you to have arrived, if I can put it that way. We don't want to be at 50 still
Yeah.
trying to figure out where you're going in life, you know? So these questions become more important. And that's what it used to be. But now, even the 18-year-old girls and guys, everybody's like, what are you bringing to the table? I'm like, what do you have? you you have
Exactly. If I were
no.
to ask you the same question, because
Yeah.
you're going to be, I mean, I'm sorry to cut in. When I was in Port Harcourt, when I was on the radio in Nigeria Info, I used to have a launch segment where we talked about easy topics and experiences, real life experiences. And someday we were talking about girls, how ladies have reduced themselves in relationships to takers. And it was just a random thought that me and my colleague expressed on live radio. And
Mm.
boom, people started calling, and this guy said, "Ah, this is what he experienced. He met this girl like today. 2 days later, it was her birthday. A week later, she needed to pay her house rent. And it just kept coming. And he was just like, I barely know you, Auntie. What's going on?" And another said, "Oh, I met this girl and I asked her to out to dinner, and she came with like three of her friends, and I had to pay. So it's tough. I know how tough it is on the guys, but then the girls who also are made or have great jobs, and they work their way up to where they are, and then they meet a guy who just has potential. Of course, they start also with that question. So, what do you bring to the table? So it's a hard enough life out there, man. It's just tough,
It
really tough.
is. And it's not getting any easier because, like I said, the younger you are, in fact, I shouldn't even say that because I don't even think it's an age thing. People are so
I
influenced
don't
by
think
social
so
media.
either.
Yeah, people are so influenced by social media that I find that people's values are a little skewed about what's important in a relationship. So there was a time when you could get married without a pre-wedding photo shoot. I'm not sure anybody right now. If you haven't done
I
a pre-wedding
will.
photo shoot,
I will get married and nobody will know until I'm
exactly.
ready.
Yeah, if you haven't done a pre-wedding photo shoot right now, so the culture is changing, the expectations are changing. But I don't think that we're doing enough work in understanding how to truly make relationships work. All the prayers we pray about, you know, is you find your husband. You don't have all those funny flyers you see or funny posters you see at church programs. Your husband is here. And everybody, everybody's trying to find man. Everybody's trying to find woman. But it's not about. I mean, yeah, you got to find each other for it to even start. But you also have to be clear that when you do find each other, you've got to figure out how to make it work. Because nothing, I tell you, worse than being in the wrong relationship. It will literally take years of your life if it doesn't even kill you. So it's not just about I want to get in a relationship. It's about I want to be in a happy relationship. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be at peace. I want to be with someone that understands me, understand what makes me tick. Because I see that people don't give 100%. I mean, I'm even sort of guilty of it too, to be honest. People don't really give 100% in relationships anymore. Nobody wants to be
Anymore,
100.
because Uti,
Yeah.
I think the reason why that is because we're all super careful, because there was a
Mm,
time in your life, Uti, that you gave it your 100. You said, you know what, if we perish, we perish. This is what you
yeah.
did. But then life dealt you a very hard blow, and you just took 10 steps back and said, you know
Yeah.
what, I'm going to be 50. We're just going to keep it 50 here, you know what I'm saying? Then if you give me up to 80, I'll meet you halfway. So I really think that, I don't think that it's just random. I think that people have learned. I mean, I've seen, the new slang in Lagos that's, yeah, be served breakfast. Somebody met me
Yeah.
yesterday. A friend of mine met me yesterday, like literally just said to me, they just served me breakfast. And,
Mm,
for a second there, I was trying to say, it's 4 p.m. What's she talking about? Then, boom, I remember that, oh, she said, look, I traveled, I went on a holiday and I got back and my boyfriend just said he's done.
mm,
And she's like, and then she said to me something that she said that struck me was, I wasn't sensitive enough. She said she wasn't sensitive because he wants an expressive person. But that she wasn't expressive enough, and he tried, but that this is who she is. She's not that expressive, but that if she was sensitive enough to understand that it was killing him, she would have at least tried to learn or lean towards it. And I said,
yeah.
well, there was no communication then, because as much as you blame yourself, he didn't really communicate that to you. So even when he was telling her now, she was like, okay, well, if you hold my hand through it, I'm probably available to learn. But he was like, I'm done. So you see, communication is really lacking. We talk about everything else, but we don't talk about the most important things
We don't
that
talk
would
about the
really
things that
help that
really,
relationship.
yeah, we don't talk about the things that really matter, do we? The things that really irritate you, the things that niggle. I find that when that happens to me, I, me, I'm already, I call it as I see it, right? So
Mhm.
I feel like I talk about the big things. But those little things, the ones that stick, the ones that niggle, the ones that really, really get to you, it might be
Mhm.
something, and it's usually the small things for me anyway. It's the very small
Yeah.
things that upset me the most. And because they're so small, and because I've been so vocal about some bigger things, I feel like, oh, you're just overdoing it now. But the truth is,
Yeah.
when you don't speak up, it starts to change your aura, starts to change your aura within the relationship. You see the person, you're not as excited as you used to be to see them, and the thing is, as your aura is changing, they're also picking up on it. And when they're picking up on it, and if you're not communicating, they're thinking what's going on. So someone could think, oh, is this person cheating? Is this person not into me? Is there a problem? I saw a funny meme today that says, when a girl starts to say, okay, or she doesn't respond, she doesn't argue with you anymore. She just says, say your data is remaining 2 MB. So
But it's true. It's
it's
true.
true, right?
So if I'm, because again, you know me, Uti, I'm very hyper.
Mm,
The moment the moment I start saying, okay, that's fine, no problem. I'm not protesting, and you know that I always protest.
Mm.
honey, you're on your way out. It's either you're on your way out or I am on my way out. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
again, like I said, many people are not sensitive. You're not checking, like you said, some things don't need to be told to you. You need to observe. And
Mm.
I remember as a child, my mother would say it's very important to be observant.
Yeah.
To even be security conscious needs you to be an observant person. So you need to observe that this never used to be here, it's now here. Or there's somebody who's always lurking and he wears a hoodie or something. So, but we're more interested in everything else but the most important things, which are things that affect either withhold or destroy our relationships. And I think that we need to start learning. A lot of people are watching. If you want to comment, you want to be part of the conversation, please share your thoughts. Ask a question. We have just about maybe 10 to 8 minutes before we wrap things up. We want to hear from you. Relationships are, in fact, I think my dad used to say something when I was growing up that marriage is a school that you never get to graduate from. But I always, um, I'm not against marriage, by the way, but I'm very critical of marriage, and I always say, why do we force? Why does society force you to make you be in a hurry to get married when you haven't even been successful
Yeah.
at relationships?
Mm. I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, we can't ignore the cultural aspect. You know, in this part of the world, it's still very important. It's almost like a workflow or a process map. So go to school, graduate, get married, have kids. All of that is expected, and that's how we're raised. I think I shared before on ways how we have this uh, programming as Black people. I realized that it was even beyond just being Nigerian. The value we place, and I think it was Tracy Ellis Ross, who did a talk about the curse of marriage and carriage and how a lot of Black women don't see themselves as successful until they've married and had kids. So we can't take away the cultural aspect. We can't take without programming is strong. Like if you're not someone who's really self-aware and has certain conversations with yourself about what you really want from life, you actually grow up thinking I need to, get married, I need to have kids. And unless you have, parents who were also self-aware and know that it's a choice and it's a decision, it's not a given, right? People just, I mean, I think a lot of the problems we have today is that, people aren't being parents aren't parenting. So kids are also not being raised very deliberately. And they grow up into adults and then we create this, self-perpetuating,
Yeah.
tongue tied. You create this cycle that
Yes.
that just
It
produces
just keeps regenerating itself. It
just
just keeps
regenerating itself.
reproducing. Yeah.
So the idea that we first of all have to work on self-awareness. What's that phrase that says to thine own self be true? You have to know who you
Mhm.
are. Your motivations need to be right. Marriage is not about I'm supposed to do it. It's that I want to do it because it's a lot of work. People
And
think
I'm
that
comfortable doing it. I see myself living through it.
exactly. So because one of the things I also say is, it doesn't help that we grow up watching, fairy tales. Disney didn't help any of us in the 80s, 80s children. We grew up with Snow White and Snow White was even too old. Like I think Little
Mm,
Mermaid was the first one that came out when I was younger. But all those
yeah.
cartoons and fairy tales that you read that always end with and they live happily ever after. It's not just to
That
close the chapter.
that is
Once
a hoax. They should imprison the person that came up with that line.
because that they lived happily ever after. And then we went from reading those stories to then reading the M&Bs and the Harley Quinns and all those things. Like it
But
just
then
it just
let's give some credit to Shrek because Shrek, scratched that
well,
whole
so the
live happily ever after and showed us the realities of being married.
Mm. They started to switch exactly from, you gotta choose, you can choose the ogre over the prince. It does change. But the
Hmm.
fact is, a lot of us who are millennials today, that was the narrative. Those were the things that shaped our love maps. So we kind of miss the wood for the trees because you think, oh, I'm just gonna find Prince Charming and then we're gonna live happily ever after, forgetting that there's a lot of work or not understanding that there's a lot of work that goes into it. So now we have to we have to shout, we have to preach, we have to say, you know what, be self-aware. Don't marry a guy. I once went to get my nails done, and the girl who does my nails, she's probably about 23. And she said, "Oh, ma, can I please ask for your advice?" And I said, "What is it?" And she says, "Oh, there's this guy who is I think he was her brother's friend, and he came to her and said, oh, that he's successful now, he's a trader, he's doing well, and he wants to marry her because he knows her family, he's close to her brother, and he wants to marry her." And she said, "Well, what should she do?" And I said, "Well, do you know this person? Apart from the fact that, like, what are your plans for your life?" She says she wants to go to school. So have you spoken to him about it? She says, "Yeah, he doesn't have a problem with it. He said he will pay." And I could see all this confusion and doubt in her, and I thought, this is not the way you go into marriage. But you
Exactly.
have to try and explain what's important. So it's not about talking her out of it, but getting her to think for herself. It's like being a coach. You don't advise, you just ask questions so people can figure it out for themselves. And to me, I think that a lot of people just jump into marriage because they're looking at their age, they're thinking the biological clock is ticking. What will people say about me, family members? You have to be self aware because when you go into that thing, like once the wedding is over, when it's planning,
Hmm.
everybody around you, everybody's buzzing.
After that whole party, you're
Yeah,
on your own.
you're on your own. Everybody, you go into your house, you close your doors, and then you and him be looking at each other like, so what up?
So what
Who
we
are you
gonna
with
do
me?
now?
What are we gonna do? And it can be
It's
a
just
rude shock.
crazy.
I mean, even I experienced it. So many different people have gone through so many different things where you just find, oh my God, you wouldn't tell me this is what it was like, but it's
I
too late.
know.
Now you've got to figure it out. Now you've got to work out how to stay in the relationship. So I think it's important that when we talk about being in relationships, you understand what your motivation is for being in a relationship, understanding what works for you in choosing a partner. Don't let your partner happen to you. That's never what you want to do. um Choose, the partner, the right kind of partner. Don't be afraid to hold out. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, but nobody, no guy, no this. And it's an aura. It's a very powerful thing. I From a faith-based perspective, for me, I've always believed that you speak things into existence. So it's whatever you
Mm.
say that you speak into the ether. If you keep saying, oh
Yeah.
no, guys don't ever see me in Lagos, I find out for me. But I mean, I know there's a lot of mad people out there, but I also think there are a lot of good. I also think
Yeah.
there are a lot of good guys out there. So it's what you believe and it's the aura that you put out, because when you think, oh, there are no good guys out there, you meet a guy, you're already like, what? Which one are you going to show? Are you a Euro demon? Are you a which one? And that is something that he will pick up on. And then you guys all of a sudden
Mm.
everybody carrying shoulder, and nobody's been, like you said, nobody's been genuine, nobody's been vulnerable. And you need a measure of
Yeah.
that to get a relationship to the level where you can be boasting we live
Yeah.
happily ever after, because they need to be able to see all sides of you.
Yeah.
But if you're only
I
trying to
also
see,
think,
Mhm.
sorry, I also think that you know, today's world has a lot to do with it. This is what I mean. We've also painted a picture of who the ideal guy should be. So you meet a person that should be your man, but because you're thinking about what your friends are going to think of him, how will Instagram people see it when we take that picture? How would he look? Can he afford this and that and that? You might not be, you might not fit into that ideal guy's picture, but that's the guy for you. Who knows? Something might change for him in another year. But because we're all prioritizing what we think or what social media or the media in itself has painted, the picture it has painted, we're all just looking for the ideal guy. And the ideal guy might not be the guy next door, the one who's asking you out. So you just be like, it's not the one, it's not an eye candy, not the type that my
Mm,
friends would, doesn't fit into
it
my
won't work.
class. Okay. So that plays a role, and the same thing for the girls. You meet a girl that you think that this, for your heart tells you, you're certain that this is the one for you, but because she doesn't fit into that persona that you have made up in your head, or social media or the traditional media has made up in your head for you, you just let it go, and then you get married to the wrong person, and you end up, you know, wishing that you didn't.
I mean, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. The funny one I would mention here, just to add to that. You ever have a friend who introduces her partner to you, and all of you can see that this is done wrong, but but she doesn't
All the
see it.
time, all the
She
time,
doesn't
and
see it.
you see all the red flags. You're literally staring at them like this, like, me, don't you see this? And she's just like, And then again in today's world, if you try to pinpoint anything, they say, "Ah, so for somebody like me,
Village
hear
people
that.
talk.
Where's your own auntie?
Village people
You are
talk.
single.
And
Bad belly. I'm sure you have eyes for him. Whoa. I don't
mm,
have eyes for your own. No. But so it's even difficult as a friend to say, look, honey. But again, that also should question the type of friends you have. Because
mm,
if I tell my friends that I have a feeling about this boy, he will not. She will start watching out for it. But there are girls that, or even guys that, if you try to say, well, I don't like that girl, or they start saying, you're a hater, or
it's
you
down to
have,
the relationship that you have with the person to determine whether that conversation will go well or not. But half
yeah,
the time, you see it, and it's like sometimes you hear years down the line that some people got divorced, and you're like, we were waiting, or we knew it was going to happen. Like they had no business
yeah.
being together in the first place. But people really do need to be a lot more deliberate about that choice, because a lot of the time, to be fair, for some people, how did Uwa put it the other day? It's become relationships have become very transactional. People are going into it from the perspective of what we'll get, what we'll see, as opposed to what the expectation is or the true feeling of how they feel about that person. And now we just have to have it's the norm now actually, because like you said, hardly anybody goes into a relationship now without thinking it. What does this person bring to the table? What is he going to add to me? Or is it going to be am I going to be happy? So we have to think about it. We have to be deliberate. And just for me, I see that we're rounding up on time. Like I said, just come back to one of the tools that you can use, which is understanding those love languages and making sure that it's not about focusing on the language that you speak, but also focusing on the language that your partner speaks so that you both can deal with each other in the right way that allows you to make love as successful for the both of you as you can, because it is work. You've got to commit to doing it.
It's his work. Before I say Uti, I've learned so much today because sometimes it pays to have these conversations so you can also reawaken some things in you, because sometimes we feel like, for example, if you've been single for a long time or you've been in and out of relationships, you just feel like, been there, done that. No, I know everything that there is to know. Sometimes there's just some things that you need to realize, if there's any such thing, and it's you shine the light on some things for me tonight, and I guess that everybody who's watching, I see 4 people watching us live on YouTube. I see some people watching us on Facebook and on Twitter. Amazing. I hope you learned something. You drop a comment for us. We'd like to hear from you. This is always a safe space. We no judgments. We just talk. We learn every day. And Uti, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. I know that everyone who's going to watch the playback will be like, yeah. And we will go back to our relationships if we're in any. See what the things that we've left unseen or the things that we've overlooked in our relationships. I'm going to, try to understand what my partner's love language is right now. It's
Very
relatively
important.
new. Yes. Yes, so it's very important. So guys, if you haven't watched, there's a replay, my YouTube, Mary Ann Jibokon, just go there and watch. There's going to be a video on YouTube, so go back and watch on YouTube. Uti Elu is a media personality. She's a co-anchor on a program on Plus TV Africa called Ways, and it's hashtag What Are You Saying? So you can watch it every day of the week, Monday to Friday, I beg your pardon, on Plus TV Africa channel 408 on DSTV if you are in Nigeria. If not, you can watch it on Plus TV Africa's YouTube channel every Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. GMT plus one. Thank you so much, Uti, for being part of the conversation. Always a pleasure.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's always such a good time. And
I
I'm a
know,
night
right?
owl. This is my best
I
time.
know, me too, me too. Yeah, me too. I'm a bat. I hardly sleep at
Yeah,
this time of the night. So,
it's not
well,
fun.
that's the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week, Saturday, when we're having more chit chat and more of these conversations that apply to you and me. And of course, it's no judgment. We're only learning as we go through life. I am Mary Anna Cohn from Lagos, Nigeria. It's good night from me. Have a good evening.